Assalamu alaikum, run things rude boy, Nabi Aziz, becomingthealphamuslim.com and the Becoming the Alpha Muslim podcast. Welcome to another episode. A few days ago, I made a post on my Facebook page asking if any of my readers, started their own online business or were thinking of starting their online business. And I got a few responses. It seems like people are, interested in this sort of thing and they're having trouble. Their main problem is finding an idea. So, thankfully, we have a guest today who is quite successful at online business. He runs a number of, niche sites that generate significant revenue for him. So I'd like to welcome my buddy Kyle Trouble from thisistrouble.com. Kyle, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on the show, and I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, cool. Why don't you take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself to the audience and, tell them about your background?
Absolutely. Yeah, my name is Kyle, and I live in Eastern Europe. I'm originally from California, and I went to school down in San Diego and Los Angeles. So California, born and raised. A few years ago, I started my site, thisistrouble.com, and it was because I was really struggling with girls. I couldn't figure out that part of my life. I was very successful in pretty much all other areas, but just couldn't seem to get that down pat. So I started a blog, and I started writing about my experiences with girls, and it eventually kind of started to take off, started getting a readership, and then it kind of kept evolving from there. So then I started traveling a little bit, and I realized how much more I enjoyed living abroad in Europe versus in America. So I went from being a corporate, computer engineer, going and working a typical 9 to 5 every day, to basically becoming a professional blogger and podcaster. And now I basically live off of my main site, as well as various smaller sites with a more targeted audience and a targeted sales point. And we're going to be talking all about those. And that's pretty much how I live my life. So I have a relatively normal life. I live in Eastern Europe and I have a lease. I've kind of stopped the travel everywhere, move every month because I found it was really negatively impacting business. So that is what I currently do, although I still do travel quite a bit. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking all about them.
Awesome. So I think you're sort of a very credible source, well experienced in the sort of online business game. So what are the different ways people can make money online?
Well, the first and foremost and easiest one, and also the least sexy one, is freelancing. So that might be doing web design, that might be doing video editing or audio editing or copywriting or some sort of freelance writing. And a lot of people are willing to do this when they first want to start, say, traveling and breaking out of the corporate gig, but I don't think it's what anyone wants to do long term, because I've had friends that have done that, and they really say that after a year or so, even though you're, quote, free of the corporate job, you're really not. It's only one step better than actually having to report to an office every day. So once you get past that, there's many different things you can do. You can build an email list and sell a product. You can do affiliate marketing. You can do drop shipping, which I admittedly don't have any experience with. Of course, most of it comes around to somehow creating something, which is very difficult when you start, and it does take a lot of upfront effort, but you'll find that once you tend to break free of the corporate job, the creativity to do these kind of things tends to come at you a lot easier when you're not drained from working a 9 to 5 job every day.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there are a number of ways you can structure, I guess, your online business. So why do you think a niche site is superior than the other business models?
I don't think it's necessarily superior in all ways, but let's talk about kind of what a niche site is exactly. So on like my main site, This Is Trouble, I talk about online business, I talk about girls, I talk about travel. It's very broad, and it's what we could reasonably call an authority site that talks about multiple topics and has quite a bit of, say, Google juice, so to speak. And then a niche site is something a little bit more targeted. So I've got a couple. UkraineLiving.com and EasternEuropeanTravel.com are the ones I'll probably reference the most. And so the Ukraine site was when I was living in Ukraine. I spent about 5 months there last year. And I had so much content and so much to say about Ukraine that I said, okay, there's definitely things that people are searching for on Google that I have the answers to. So then it's a matter of trying to find what people are searching for and then give them the answers to their problems. So on a site like that, you are never going to have the raw numbers as far as traffic that an authority site would have. However, you are more targeted in your audience. Like when someone comes to This Is Trouble, I don't know if they're looking for girl advice or they're looking for business advice. Maybe they want a little bit of both. But when someone comes to that Ukraine site, I am dead sure that they were looking for something about Ukraine. And hopefully then I have the answer for it on my site. So it's superior to other online methods that I just talked about because it's a very low, like, upfront cost. It doesn't take a lot of effort. With 10 to 20 articles, you can be up and ranking on Google and potentially making sales. Of course, that also means you don't really have the profit potential of something as big as an authority site or as drop shipping. And you also, the last thing is you don't have a ton of control when it comes to the niche site. You have to do your research, you got to do your due diligence, but ultimately you still are going to be relying on Google to send you that traffic that's relevant, and hopefully then from there it's up for you to convert it. So in my opinion, the thing that makes a niche site so attractive is because it really puts your foot in the door. It will teach you how to write good copy. It will teach you how to design a good website. And on top of that, it's very little upfront work compared to, say, drop shipping, where you need to have, a supplier and maybe some inventory. And it's certainly a lot less work upfront than building a longer-term authority site, which is going to require, hundreds of pieces of content and years of building an audience.
Right. So I think you've covered, my next question in general, which is what are the cons of running a niche site? Obviously, the sort of pool of potential customers is small, and then you're relying on, one source of traffic, which is Google. And Google's, I think both of us have sort of some experience with this, where Google can change its algorithm at any point, and that has a potential of completely trashing your website's rankings, right?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I've had some cases where Google decided they would change a couple lines of code, and before you know it, I'm dropping, all the way down from ranking number 1 for something all the way down to the 3rd or 4th page. So there are some other cons of running a niche site. Number 1, if you don't like writing, it's going to be tough. Of course, you can outsource that, but that's a totally different story in and of itself, whether you'll actually find good quality. And then, like I said, there's some potential for longer term, higher sustained income. I have some sites that generate over $1,000 a month, but you're probably not going to ever make a 6-figure salary from a niche site, And at that point, if you are, it's becoming more of an authority site. And that long term, if you do build a niche site up and you keep adding to it, eventually it will become more of an authority site seen in that niche, but you're still always going to have a very limited customer set. So that's kind of another con, is you do need to be able to kind of see into the future to an extent and figure out, are people still going to be searching for this in a year or 2 years or 5 years? And if not, you have to really ask yourself whether or not it's worth going down that avenue and actually building out this site with all the content that you're going to have to create.
Right. So then, for example, for you to make a significant sustainable revenue off of building niche sites, you would need to do, I suppose, more than one niche site.
Yeah, I would say so in a perfect world. A lot of people start out with wanting to just build these as a little bit of a side hustle. So let's say you have a typical 9-to-5 that you go to every day, but nobody is ever really truly comfortable with that, I think. Most people that I know are still kind of just getting by, just have enough to pay the bills. They're not saving a lot. But if you were able to build a small site with under 50 hours of work that could generate you $500 a month, I think that's something that appeals to people. And then once you've got the first one down, obviously the more you do something, the more you're going to master it. So you could make a small living off of one niche site, but it probably is not going to be your first one. So you are probably going to have to at least build a couple out at the start in order to reach that kind of, hollowed 4-figure mark. Because I think that's what a lot of people shoot for. And a lot of people also have the aspirations of, hey, I want to travel and I want to have that freedom. So they will tend to aim for about $1,200 to $1,500 US a month, which is enough to live in most places in the world and live a pretty decent life at that point. But I do think over the long term, you do need to have a better plan than just making $1,200 a month and trying to survive on that.
Right. And just to sort of summarize again the niche site business model, what you're doing is you find a topic that people are searching for online. You create a website around that topic, and hopefully people will search for that topic online and come to your website. When they do come to your website, then you have the opportunity to sort of sell them stuff. And what I ask from my readers, the main problem is sort of finding the idea to build the website around. So how do you go about finding a profitable niche site idea?
Well, first off, you have to remember that you're going to have to create the content for this. So if it's something you absolutely hate and can't stand, even if it's profitable, you may not even get to the point where you can make money from it. So the most important thing is to pick something that you're at least somewhat interested in, especially for the first one. When you know the formula is going to work and you know how to do it, then it's easier to stomach writing about something that you don't have any interest in. But for your first one, you do need to pick something that you at least have some sort of knowledge, first-hand knowledge ideally, about, and something that you are actually interested in. So then it's a matter of, like you said, you build out the site, and you're going to need to write probably at least 20 pieces of content to start. And then you basically build that site, get it online, you optimize it for Google, and then you're trying to sell an affiliate product. So again, affiliate marketing is when I refer someone to someone else's product, I get a cut of that. On a physical product, it's going to hopefully be like 10 to 20%. On a digital product, you should be looking for 50 to 70% ideally. And the great thing about this is that you don't have to create a product, because doing market research and testing the market for a product that you're creating is very difficult. It's very time consuming. In this case, you're trying to sell something that someone else has already created that they've hopefully validated, and all you have to do then is point people in that direction. So there's a couple ways of doing it. You can look at what people are searching for with a specific product. In that case, they'd be looking for stuff like review, like, XYZ product review, ABC product review. Or you can take a more general problem that people are having and recommend a solution at the end of your post. Both ways have their merit, both have their pros and cons, but that is kind of the general premise of how to build a site like this.
Mm-hmm. And when you started, did you build any niche sites that failed?
I did, yeah. So I had one, it's still up, it's called typesoftequila.com, and I saw that there were a lot of keywords about tequila out there, and I lived in, LA and San Diego right next to Mexico, so I knew quite a bit about tequila. I like tequila. Unfortunately, online alcohol sales are very difficult to sell because it can be bought at anyone's local grocery store, so I'd really ideally would have needed to find very niche specialty tequilas with a very high ticket price that I could have sold. The site makes maybe $20 to $50 a month on a good month, but that's mostly from selling Amazon links, and it's not really people actually buying things. So I have some posts about the best margarita glasses, and someone clicks that link. Maybe they don't buy a glass, but they buy something else on Amazon. And then the second one I built was going to be about hoverboards. Because about this time last year, I saw that everyone was writing these hoverboards around, and there was a huge market for it. And after writing 2 posts about hoverboards, I pretty much was ready to absolutely slit my wrists. So at that point, I just called it a day because I didn't want to write about hoverboards and the specs. But had I known what I know now, I would have obviously just hired that out and had someone else do it. But yeah, I have built several that have failed, and that was kind of part of the learning process for me.
Right, excellent. And do you need to have, for example, a coding background or a tech background or to get started?
You don't, but I should say that I do come from a tech background. I was a computer engineer and have always had a pretty good knack for technology. With that being said, it's really not that difficult to get going with one of these because all the web hosts have made it very simple. So let's say you sign up with Bluehost or GoDaddy or HostGator or whoever you may end up choosing. Once you have your account and you pay for your hosting, they have a one-click install button where you literally press install WordPress and you enter in a username and a password, and it takes care of all of it for you and then sends you the login info. You log in, and right then and there, you can start publishing stuff on the internet. It's really that simple. Of course, once you want your site to start looking good and you want to get into the more technical things of things, some background certainly wouldn't hurt, but it's definitely not necessary to get started. And even if you don't want to use generic, boring themes, which you shouldn't, they're still very much what you see is what you get. So that means you can purchase a theme or you can download a premium theme, you can install it, and pretty much be off and on your way without needing to really customize anything. Of course, if you want to really start tweaking things to what you want, you will need to either open tickets with the vendor or you'll need to do it yourself. But I would say you absolutely do not need any sort of coding or technical background to get started with a niche site.
Okay, excellent. And let's say I want to get started today. Can I use, for example, one of those free blogging sites like a .wordpress.com blog or Blogger or Tumblr or even Medium?
You cannot. So that's the thing about those is Google, you need to have your own domain, you need to have your own website, and you need to have your own hosting. So first off, if you go with, say, WordPress, you're going to be limited on the plugins you can use, and the content you can post can be moderated technically, and there's a lot of variables that will come into play that are going to prevent you, from a technical standpoint, of getting the SEO traffic that you want. Medium works a little bit differently from my understanding because it can send search engine juice to your site, but you still need to actually own, your domain.com, and you need to be on your own web host. So if you wanted just to blog for fun, you could use those kind of sites, but if you're serious about really making money, you do need your own host, and you need to have that set up properly.
Okay. So let's say now I've started my website. Or okay, let's go one step further back. Let's say I've done the research and I found an idea. So now walk us through the process of getting started step by step briefly.
Okay, so first off, you do need to make sure that you've got hosting and a domain name. You should, if you plan on starting more than one site, you'll probably be paying somewhere between $50 and $75 US a year for the hosting, and that should be unlimited sites. And then a domain name, it's going to be $8 to $10 a year for each website. So you're looking at about roughly $100 a year to start one or two sites. If you also want a premium theme, i.e. not a free one that comes with WordPress or whichever blogging platform you're using, that will be anywhere from $20, and you could spend, a couple $100 on one of those. So they're not necessary. Probably a premium theme in the $20 to $50 range is more than adequate for people starting out. So that's where you would start with that. And then you've really got to do your research. So there's three big niches. There's health, wealth, and relationships. And within all of those are a ton of sub-niches. So let's say that we're going to be talking about fitness. And within fitness, there's yoga, there's weightlifting, there's cardio. So you've got to find something that is within those niches. And all of them are going to come back to the big three in most cases. But you need to make sure that there is competition in... competition's not necessarily bad, but you got to make sure that there's room for you to compete with these other people. And so once you've found that and you've found products to review, so you've got to go through and you've got to say, okay, here is my niche that I picked out. Here are the products I can sell. Here is how much I will make off of all of those. Then you start structuring your reviews and structuring the kind of posts that you want to write, and you start kind of putting your site together. But you definitely shouldn't be buying a domain and starting a website without first knowing what the general niche is and having a good idea of at least the first 20 posts that you're going to be writing on it.
Right. So again, that goes back to the research aspect, right? You got to spend the time to do the research to get your ducks in a row before you start. Yeah. So now we're not selling our own product that we've created. We're selling other people's products. So how do you decide which products to sell and where do you find them?
There is a great site called highpayingaffiliates.com. I think that's what it is. You can just Google it. But you want to generally look for things that convert well and things that pay well, obviously. So the most important thing, again, a physical product, let's say you're selling a supplement. If it's physical, there's not going to be as much of a profit margin, so you can't expect to make as much. So if you can get 10 to 20 to 25% on a physical product, that's excellent. And again, that's going to kind of depend on what you're doing. So if you're selling someone $100 worth of, say, supplement pills, making 25% on that's not too bad. But if you're selling, sticking with the fitness example, let's say you're selling a $5,000 treadmill. The company doesn't have that kind of margin to give you 25% of that. But if they gave you, 5% of that, that's still $250. That's a pretty good chunk of change for making one sale. So you want to be looking for physical product, 10 to 25%. If it's a digital product, again, you want 50 to 75%. Also, if it's a recurring model, meaning that someone is selling, say, a membership to their podcast or their website, ideally you'd like to have something where you have a recurring revenue coming. So let's say that they have a $20 a month subscription fee. Ideally, you would probably want 70% on that upfront sale, so you'd take about $15. And then in a perfect world, you'd also find a product that was paying you another 5 to 10 every month. And that's going to vary depending on their costs and everything, but you want to avoid the people, you shouldn't avoid them, but you do want to just be careful of that, of sending someone a customer who's going to pay 12 months of fees, but they're only going to give you, maybe the first month. So try to find programs that fit within what you would use, what you would recommend, and that ultimately convert well and ideally bring you recurring revenue over the longer term.
Right, exactly. That makes sense. So now you've set up your website. You've got an idea of what posts you want to create. Maybe you've got a few posts already up there. How do you monitor your progress and decide whether you're doing well or you're doing poorly?
Okay, yeah. First, I want to make one note about writing your posts. So it's very easy to say that all traffic is the same, but it's really not. So let's say that someone's looking to buy a new car, and you really couldn't do a niche site on a car, but I'll just use this example because it's easy. So let's say someone wants to buy a pickup truck. They might Google best pickup trucks of 2017, and then maybe they find a couple different pickup trucks they like. So then they say, Chevy versus Dodge pickup truck 2017. And then it becomes, okay, I like the Chevy truck. So then they start Googling Chevy truck review 2017. And then they keep going to buy Chevy truck. So those kind of keywords at the bottom, someone who's typing in the words buy or review or a comparison, those people might have their credit cards out and ready to buy right then and now versus someone who's just starting out with their research. So that's something to keep in mind too. As you're doing research for these sites, you want to look at the difficulty of these different keywords that you're trying to target. And if the competition's high, you may not be able to break into that. So you have to be realistic about what you can or can't rank for. Trust me when I say there's still plenty of niches and markets that are completely untapped. And now as far as monitoring, so let's say that you've got those posts up now, you're creating the content. You want to use something like, it's called a SERP tracker, so Search Engine Ranking Position Tracker. And there's paid services, there's free ones out there that will do it. I use SEMrush, but you can find ones that are quite a bit cheaper. And basically what you'll do is you'll put your keywords into this system or this tool, and it'll say like, okay, here's keyword number 1. On this day you were ranking 77 for it, and 2 weeks later you were 50, and then, you're 30, 20, 10. So that's how you would monitor your progress for the individual keywords. And of course, you can obviously just look at your general stats in Google Analytics or on your WordPress stats, and you can kind of see what you're doing there. But that's how you would actually get down to the nitty-gritty of monitoring the specific things that you're searching for, is using a SERP tracker.
Okay. And then how would you measure how well your posts or your landing page or your sales page is converting the traffic? What's a good sort of ballpark figure to shoot for?
It kind of depends on the keywords that they're finding. So again, if someone's finding you from a blah 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 review, that person's going to be ready to buy probably. Unfortunately, with a niche site, you're doing affiliate marketing, meaning that you don't have access to all the data past a certain point. Once you recommend your product and you make your pitch and they click that link, you don't know how long they spend on the next page. You don't know the exact conversion, but it's hard to get all of the data when you're running an affiliate program versus when it's your own product. You can say like, okay, here's the goal is that they get to the sales page, and then the next goal is that they get to the thank you page, which is what they get after they enter their credit card information or their PayPal account. You don't have control over that. all you're going to see is that people are clicking. In your affiliate portal, you'll see that people are clicking and that people are either buying or they're not. So generally speaking, you should try to aim for probably about 2 to 5% conversion rate. So that means that for every 100 clicks you send to that sales page, that you would get 2 or 5 people that buy it. Somewhere in there would be pretty good. It may be more, it may be less. It kind of depends on the quality of traffic that you're sending. Unfortunately, that is what is difficult, and it's one of the cons of running a site like this, is you don't know how well it's going to convert on their end. You don't know how far people are getting. You don't know everything that goes on with the back end of these companies. However, you can take a little bit of solace in the fact that many of these companies that you will recommend products for have done a lot of market research, and they have a lot of money they've invested into optimizing their sales pages over years or maybe even decades of work. So you can rest reasonably assured that they're doing everything they can to make that sale because it helps them too.
Right. And then obviously you don't have the work of actually writing a sales page because those sales pages are already written.
Correct. Yeah, so with a niche that you really want you almost want to just kind of push people. So again, if you're able to get those keywords of buy or review, someone's already looking for it. They just need that little push to get them over the edge. So that's kind of what your goal is to do, is to provide that extra push that makes them click the link and then make the sale. What was the question?
No, actually, it was just a statement. So I guess you would only measure the conversion sort of at a macro level. So total number of people coming to your website, then total number of people clicking on your affiliate links, and then finally total number of people eventually buying, and then that's your actual conversion for the website as a whole.
Correct. Yeah, and ideally the affiliate would have a good system where you can use what's called that you can tag the end of your affiliate URL. So if you're using WordPress, you should absolutely have the plugin called Pretty Link or Easy Affiliate Links. They both work great. So you should be adding what posts they're coming from to the end of your link. So, like, let's say I recommend Bluehost on This Is Trouble. So it would be thisistrouble.com/Bluehost. And let's say it's on my resources page, I would tag that with Bluehost-R. So that way, if I make that sale, I know it came from the resource page. And over time, you can know where people, in what posts, they're buying from. But that's the hard thing, is that some affiliate programs don't give you that capability. So then all you know is that you sent 100 visitors and 2 of them bought, but you don't really know where those actual clicks came from because they don't give you that data. And any good affiliate program is going to give you that data so you can kind of optimize it, but some of them don't. And that's just kind of something that you have to live with, is that you may have made 2 sales, but you just have no clue which one's actually converted. And it's maddening, but it's kind of just part of the game that you have to play.
Yeah, definitely. So now once you've got your website all set up and you've got your back end for the sales set up, and how do you scale that website or scale the business?
I think what I found is that, again, 20 posts is about the number that you absolutely have to have, and you'll start getting some traffic. So as far as scaling it, websites are like fine wine. They gain value as they age. So the longer your domain and your site has been purchased and has been online, the more likely Google is going to see it as relevant content and to reward you with that. So what's important to remember, too, is you have a sandbox period, and it's about a month. So if you start a new website, and Google's not going to rank it because they want to make sure that you're serious. They want to make sure that you're providing quality content and that you're not just putting up a single page and trying to make sales from that. Because that's what people used to do. They would build a one-page website around one product, and they would just stuff it with keywords. And they'd use the keyword like 500 times, and that would get them to the top of Google every time. They've gotten a lot smarter now. So you're going to have that sandbox period, and after that, scaling is just a matter of, maybe starting social media and posting occasionally to it. After 6 months, I would say move to a once-a-week format or once-a-month format on your posts. Keep new content coming. It doesn't have to be all the time, but the more you continue to post, the more it's going to continue to grow. And while I would not teach people that I work with on this, I wouldn't say you need an email list. I do think it's beneficial over the long term that you do start one, even if you don't do anything with it right away. So like MailChimp has free subscribers up to 2,000 people. So put a form on your site, install MailChimp, and start collecting emails. Even if you don't want to do any direct email marketing at that moment, you may want to someday. So, like, for example, on my Ukraine site, that's the next step for me. Is my email list is getting, close to 1,000 people. I'm now actually looking like maybe I could create a product, even though I never had that desire to and never had that intention when I started the site. Maybe there would be something for me to create because I have a very engaged email list. So over the long term, you want to, get the site up, get it out of the sandbox, get it ranking. As it starts to rank, you can over time taper off the amount of content, and then over the long term, you can try to build it up into a real authority site and a real brand. But that is going to take, again, a lot more time and a lot more commitment, and you may have to weigh the pros and cons and say, well, I'd rather just start another small site that makes me $1,000 a month versus trying to get this one to $2,000.
Right. So, like, there's a diminishing returns on the amount of effort that you're putting in, right?
It kind of depends. I think if you're at the point that you're making $1,000 a month from a site, you can afford to hire someone to write 2 posts a month for it. It's not going to cost you more than $50, and it'll probably be reasonably high quality. So that's very little time investment. Like, I would say on the Ukraine site, I have a staff writer now, and she writes 2 to 3 posts a month for it, and it takes me 15 minutes to edit those posts and add images. So that's roughly $30 of work a month to make $1,000, or 30 minutes of work a month to make about $1,000. So that's not bad. But let's say I wanted to create a product for that. I would need to do the market research. I'd have to design the product. I'd have to test it. I'd have to get my payment processors in place. I'd have to launch it. All of a sudden, those 30 minutes a month are going to well over 30 hours a month. And so at that point, you've got to ask yourself if it really is worth it. I will say this from experience on This Is Trouble, going outside of kind of the niche site business, you really do have to validate your product and make sure that it's something that people are going to want to buy. There's nothing worse than building a product that nobody wants to buy and getting crickets when you launch it. It's a very humbling experience.
Definitely. Have you experimented with paying for traffic, via Facebook ads or Google AdWords?
I've dabbled in it, and I've just never really been able to get a good enough hold on it to make it worthwhile. I think it could definitely have potential, but you'd really want to be careful about what posts you are sending people to, and kind of going towards a copywriting perspective, you really want to make sure that your goal for them, if you're going to send them to that, is very, very straightforward. Like, you don't want to just send someone to a page for the sake of sending them there. That will get you traffic, it will help your site rank, but that's a pretty poor return on investment. Now, if you're going to send them to a very specific landing page or a very specific blog post that has an action at the end, then maybe it's worthwhile. But at the same time, with those high-powered keywords with buy and review, the ones that make money, you've got a lot of companies that are already paying for those same keywords. So it's very, very difficult to actually get in the market of keywords that are buying and high intent, because all the companies are investing their marketing budget in that as well. So you don't want to be going and playing with these guys for, keywords that are $5 a click, because you're going to run out of money really quick on that. Facebook is kind of a different animal because it's a little bit more targeted, and it's a little bit, I think, less competition overall. But I don't recommend guys do it just because it's upfront money, and the whole point of a niche site is to kind of get your foot in the door with online business and to get some experience and hopefully make a few $100. And if you're going to start throwing away several $100s on campaigns, all of a sudden you're getting to a much more advanced level. So my general recommendation would be wait till you have some money coming in, wait till you've built at least 1, maybe 2 sites and have the experience, and then you can start looking at those avenues.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, especially when you're just starting out. In your experience, what are some, profitable niches in general that people could start exploring if they're interested in starting a niche site?
I definitely think that, again, they all kind of come back to one of those big 3, health, wealth, or relationships. So if you can build a narrative and a story around one of those, then you've got something for you. So like on the Ukraine site, for me, it was travel and freedom, and those kind of come under the wealth part of it. It's having the money to not have to work a job and to be able to travel. And then I've got dating worked into that too, so that's the relationship part of it. So good niches are ones with little competition but are in a proven niche. So another example I like to use is under fitness, you've got yoga. And then within that, there's this new specialty thing like hot yoga, where you do yoga in a sauna. I think it sounds absolutely terrible, but if you could find some sort of program that taught people about that, that's very specific and not hugely popular yet, that would be a niche that would be worth getting into. So you want to start with the big three, find something you're passionate about, and then ideally find something that doesn't have a ton of competition, is more specialized. And then, of course, all the rules about lower competition and good products to sell apply from there.
That's perfect. All right, so now this episode, now we've given them just a really quick summary of, the niche site business model. If they wanted to learn more about it, they'd have to, go online or do a little bit more reading about, starting a niche site and doing market research and things like that. Do you have any resources that could maybe shortcut the process for them?
Yeah, so I have a course called pronichesite.com, and there's 6 free videos, and those will kind of give you a good opening introduction to doing this on a higher level. They're about an hour and a half in total, so I would definitely watch those and check that out. And then there's also a podcast I run, nomadandnerdy.com, which goes into some of this. Other than that, there are a lot of people who have done this out there. Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income has quite a few niche sites, and that's how he kind of got started. So I would definitely listen to his show and check that out, and you should be able to learn quite a bit more about kind of the methodology behind doing this.
Excellent. All right, one final thing for the listeners. Where can they find you online?
You can find me at thisistrouble.com. That's my main website. And then if you want those 6 freebie videos, check out pronichesite.com. And that's where I'd start.
Yeah. And I'll leave links to all of these, resources and websites in the show notes. All right. Kyle, thanks so much for dropping by and teaching my audience about how to build niche sites and make money online. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, man. Thank you guys for tuning into the show, and thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Just stay on the line while I close out the show. All right, there you have it, guys. That's how you build a niche site. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. You just open up the iTunes app, search for Becoming the Alpha Muslim, hit subscribe, and then leave me a rating and review, because that's how I get higher in the iTunes algorithm rankings, and that's how more people will find the show and more people will benefit from it. So once again, thank you all for listening. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.